Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, we on another Monday, aren't we? Hope everybody's doing well this morning. First of all, let me take care of a few housekeeping things. We just recently merged the King Gene channels, and so I'll have a primary channel. And at first, I was going to delete that primary channel in favor of the first channel that I ever made on YouTube. But what I've decided to do is just to have two. One is going to primarily be dedicated to positive masculinity, and the other is going to be a kind of mixture of sorts of a few things. But I think that's going to work out pretty good. So now, for those of you who saw the last live that we did last Monday, there's a couple of things I want to say that'll lead us into our discussion this morning. Frustration is a real thing, you all. And especially if you're living in a situation where the thing that frustrates you continues to happen. Hey, Lisa. If you're continually exposed to elements of society that are aimed at people that look just like you. I had a conversation with some of my loved ones, and they expressed the same frustration. There are things that are continuing to happen that lets you know that people that look like you, that might be in your same ethnic group, are not valued as they should be. But that's beside the point. That's how I felt, so I made that known. But in the process, I think what happened is the positivity that I was trying to get across by trying to help individuals to stay focused and to be reminded of the responsibility that they have to safeguard their children, I think it got misconstrued into negativity. And that's not what I'm about. And so I got a text message from a longtime friend and mentor. And the text message was well received because it actually helped me to appreciate the need to stay positive, the need to look to the future, and to expect good things. And so I thank Brother Buck for that. Shout out to you, Brother Buck. We appreciate you. But now, that really brings me to the thought for this morning. At all times during your life, there's a need to have someone around you that can help you level set. Regardless of what age you are, it's beneficial to have those around you that can keep you focused. Now, in our community, there's absolutely a need for that. And why do I say that? Well, we have millions of children that are raised now in our society and in our ethnic group, and they're raised by single parents. Now, I know this is probably going to be touchy for some, but we got to talk about it, okay? So hold your heart and come on, go with me. So now, why is single parenting put in the same conversation with mentoring? Well, it's simple. Because especially if this is a single mother, then that means that the presence of positive masculinity is absent in the home. It's absent. So the only thing that the children can see, whether it's little boys or little girls, the only thing that they can see is positive femininity. Because here you have a mother and she's struggling to raise her children. She's going to work. She's doing everything that she possibly can do. But now, when those children grow older and they go out into the world and they find out that in the world, there's a duality between femininity and masculinity, and that in their home setting, it should have been a situation where their femininity and masculinity was presented to them, and it should have molded them to where they come out being individuals who are balanced. See, I'm about balance now. So we got to touch on that. So they're balanced because they've been able to see things from a feminine perspective as well as a masculine perspective, because you have the mother and the father there. So now, statistically, children, and listen, as always, I'm not trying to be negative, and I'm not trying to, cause any difficulties for those that are single parents, but I need to tell you this because I want you to understand where I'm going. Statistically, individuals that are raised in a single parent household, they're more prone to be violent. Many don't finish high school. Many don't go on to have a positive and a productive life. The statistics are there. Look it up. Not just from me now. That's not just me saying that. But because of the fact that these individuals have this difficulty, and we know that that difficulty exists, what can we do about it? And when I say we, I'm talking about the brothers. What can we do? Well, it's simple. If they've never seen positive masculinity, then why don't you present it to them? Why don't you mentor them? And see, I'm an individual who can speak with a certain amount of experience. I would even say expertise in it. Because even now I have individuals that I can call, like Brother Buck, Brother Gray, and those individuals are quite a bit older than I am. They have a more masculine perspective of things, and they get me together whenever I'm off balance. So why not introduce your child to a positive masculine role model? Now, a lot of people are saying, okay, well, it's not a whole lot of them around. Or I'd have to, if you have a grandfather, some of us are blessed to have them, then make sure that your child is exposed to their grandfather. If you have an uncle that's a masculine individual, a man that exhibits the true traits of positive masculinity, expose their child to your uncle, right? So there's ways around this thing. There's ways around it because, as I mentioned, the goal in parenting is to produce a balanced and productive child. That's what we're fighting for. And so it's a need to have individuals mentor their child. If you know that there's a certain perspective that they're going to need in life to help them to be productive, to help them to provide for themselves. As parents, that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility. I mentioned them so many times in the live that I've done in the past, but I think that it's worth mentioning again. My great uncle, my grandmother's brother, Vanderbilt Griffin, was that individual for me in the beginning. When he died, it left a hole in me because here's an individual that I could look at and say, okay, this is the kind of man that I want to be. He was balanced in his approach to all things that I seen. Now, of course, there were instances where he got angry now because, hey, that's part of masculinity. But it was never a situation where I felt like Uncle Van did something and he didn't take into consideration how it would affect those around him. And that's what masculinity is about. A lot of times, the emotions that a person displays can have a negative effect on the ones around them. I'll give you an example. In a lot of the reports that we have of shootings that occur between young men, young black men, when you get down to the core of the problem, what was the reason for the shooting? What was the reason why this young man took another young man's life? Because he didn't understand that there is a particular composure that a man is supposed to have. As a masculine, a truly masculine man, there are limits that you place on yourself. Because you know that certain things that you do are going to affect everyone around you. They'll keep you from pulling that trigger. They'll keep you from even going down the road where your emotions get to a level where you can't control what you do. That's all part of masculinity. And in our community, in our ethnic group, that's missing. Because, no disrespect, but if they're raised by a single mother, then the only thing they know is emotion. Because we have to realize that emotion, nurturing, attending to how an individual feels is primarily taken care of by the mother. The father is the one who introduces logic. The father is the one who says, okay, if this is the course that you're going to decide to take, then A, B, C, D, E is what's going to happen to you. We have to realize that that's the function. That's why I say there's a duality that's there. And that duality creates a balance in an individual. And If that duality is not there, it's going to be difficult for that particular child to face the world and be productive. Now, listen, I didn't say it was impossible. I didn't say that. But it's going to be difficult. So if there are individuals in and around you, like it was with me, that see the potential in you, whether it's a little girl or a little boy, but you see that potential in that child, what I'm asking you to do, what I'm advocating for, is that you exert positive influence on that child. Now, look, and I won't make this much longer now because it's starting to sound like I'm preaching, but one of the examples that I'll cite that had a profound effect on me was Mr. Holton. Mr. Holton. Now, he was an art teacher at Humphreys County High, and his son was a good friend of mine. But now, I tell you in the beginning, I don't think Mr. Holton liked me. I don't think he did. I don't think so. In the beginning, I didn't think so. But now, as time went on, I understood what Mr. Holton was doing. I understood what he was doing for me and what he was doing for the other children, mostly men, mostly boys, in his class. He was harder on us than he was on the girl. And I used to always think, now, why in the world does Mr. Holton treat us like that? But then as I got older, I understood what he was trying to do. He was trying to impart to us composure, stability, and what being a man really meant. Mr. Holton wanted the boys in his class, especially those that were African American, he wanted us to understand that there were going to be difficulties that were going to come in life. Life was not going to be easy for us because it wasn't for him. But he was doing his part to make sure that we were prepared. And it's only now, as I sit here, that I understand fully what he was trying to do. Hey, Tosh, he was trying to prepare us. He was trying to make sure that we knew what it was that was expected of us. And I appreciate him for that. Now, there are other names I could mention, of course. There are other teachers that did the same thing. But what the premise is, even in that particular situation, is that even though he was a teacher, what Mr. Holton was doing is he was mentoring. That's what he was doing. Individuals that came in his class, he held them to a certain standard. The way that you spoke to each other, the way you presented yourself. There were certain things you couldn't do in his class. There were certain things you couldn't wear in his class. He was not going to allow that. He was not going to allow that. And as I went into life and I started to work and to provide for my family, I see that if you set a standard and if you are positive about the standard that you set, then things will go well. But as a man, you have to set a standard. And see, individuals that are raised by single parents, as we mentioned, we mean no disrespect, but that kind of thought process is never introduced to them. An individual can go their whole life and not be introduced to a positive example of what a man is. And for those of us that embody that, just like Mr. Holton and so many other teachers that we had at the high school, we have to exert more of an influence because we're losing too many children because they don't have the structure that they need. As men, that's our responsibility to provide structure. As I mentioned, the mothers, they nurture, they help individuals to deal with their feelings and to be productive that way. But for us, we have to provide that structure. We have to be strong enough to step in that divide and help those that lack structure to develop it. Because now, what do you think the military is for? I don't condone, the whole thought of that, but think about it. Individuals, they don't have structure. They go off to the military and they come back a totally different person. Why is that? Because of the structure. And as men, or as young men, I should say, even though you don't have a lot of people that admit that, young men need structure. They need somebody to say, okay, this is as far as you go. You don't go no further. Or you need someone to sit down and logically take them through the progression of solving a problem. You say, okay, this is where you start. These are the steps that you take. This is the outcome that you'll get. And you help them to develop reasoning ability, thinking faculties. That's our responsibility. So tell me, why is it then that if you have an individual who's aware of these things, why are we sitting down just waiting on something different to happen? It's our community. We don't want to see young ones killing each other, so we need to step in and help. We need to step in and do our part. Mentoring is the way to do it. Because now you take that individual outside of a situation that they may be in at home, outside of a situation where there's nothing but negativity around them, and you introduce them into something positive. It can change a person's whole point of view. It could change their whole life. How do I know? Because it was done for me. At various points in my life where I didn't know where to go, what to do, there were individuals that were there who took the time to make sure I knew what was my responsibility as a young man and then as an adult. And I still deal with those individuals to this day. As a matter of fact, a lot of my mentors growing up, my children refer to them as their grandparents. That's how close the bond is. And that's the type of bond that we need to be pushing in our community. That's the kind of bond that's going to help individuals in the long run. You may not have been raised with a balanced view of femininity and masculinity. That's okay. That's okay. We can't hold that against you. But now that you're aware of these things, then expose yourself to somebody that can help you with the difficulties that you're going through. I guarantee you, it'll make a world of difference to you. I guarantee you, you'll be so happy that you did it. Well, I guess I've preached enough for this morning. As I mentioned, y'all, the two channels, the two King Gene channels have been merged together. And we hope that you all continue to enjoy the content, man. First of all, let me say another thing too. I am so thankful for the support that you all give. Not just with the live that we do every Monday to be positive, to start the week off on something good, but all the other endeavors that I have. I looked at my secondary YouTube channel and I almost have 4,000 followers, and the majority of those followers come out of Mississippi. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Because now, just to let you in on a little something, and then, we'll conclude. You see a lot of guys now making YouTube videos, right? And that's not just because we want to talk and we want to get in front of the camera. It's a business. After you get 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, then they begin to monetize your channel. You receive residuals from it. So that's another stream of income, right? So if you have something to say, you think it's going to be positive, you think it's going to benefit others, by all means, that's the way that you can use to get your thoughts out, but at the same time, it can benefit you financially. We always on the hustle now. We gonna hustle. It's gonna be legit, but we gonna hustle. All right, y'all. As always, we love you, man. Y'all have a good, positive, productive week. We'll talk to you later.